Are you ready?
Are you kidding me? That's what?
Yeah, every so often it happens that Ryan is right.
100% right. Not even a little bit right.
Tucker Pullman, 2 points last game.
No kidding.
My man!
Hey, neither does me running shirtless, but that turned out very well.
Welcome to the PP1 podcast.
Oh, man. Canucks coming off of a massive, well, it was 5-2 when I turned the TV off. Win against Ottawa. They're the absolute best team in the NHL. And because we knew that they were going to win, we decided to bring back a good friend of the show, former Vancouver Canuck, but current Canucks alumni, Aaron Volpatti. Welcome back to the show, buddy.
There you go. Thanks for having me, guys. So we're not using the term wagon. That's what you said before.
I just like you said to Ted right before, and I told you, like, if you're implying that they're a wagon, which everyone says, that means, like, we've all seen a wagon. The wheels can come off of those things. So
yeah, fair.
I think they're a unit. We can maybe call them a unit because whatever you want it to be. So, do with that what you will.
Yeah, I'm curious to know why the unit is less than a wagon. But hey, that's a whole other debate.
You're really killing me on this, man. I really had a thing I thought I was going to go with, and you're just killing me on this. So that's fine. That's fine. Whatever. I should get the pleasantries out of the way. Welcome to the PP1 podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network, and also brought to you by DraftKings. Promo code THPN. We got to get the bills out of the way. And Raycon, we're going to fill that out a little bit later for you. You'll hear that on the podcast version. But we did bring back Aaron Volpatti to the show, former Vancouver Canuck. Great guy to chat with. Last time we chatted was right at the beginning of COVID, I think, or in the middle of the first year. So we all had a little bit of time on our hands back then, as did you. And we just thought, like, let's get a refresher if he'd let us. And looks like you've had lots on the go since then. You have a book now, which is super cool. And it is on my list of ones to finish. I have 3/4 done of one book. I have a Brian Burke and I have yours to go into. So
there you go.
And I only read like 2 books a year. So
that's one of those guys open it up and then fall asleep right away after you start reading.
I just try to get out as much as possible and read it. I try to get a book done in like a couple days and then like feel accomplished. And then I don't have to touch a book for like 9 months. So
perfect. Hey, that's one way to do it, man.
Yeah.
I feel like my kids like sense me reading a book and then immediately come to interrupt me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Airplane flights are really good places to read books.
Oh, yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, true.
It's that's how it's done. So like that was a pretty big success, your book that came out. Maybe just chat a quick little second about that.
Yeah, man. No, it's been a whirlwind, I guess, since we last chatted there. I guess to go back, like the book had always been a side project for me. After hockey and a lot of guys go through this, but it was a struggle, man, to find out like what the hell I was going to do with the rest of my life and that loss of identity. Mm-hmm. That shit's real, man. And it's hard to deal with. And I mean, I had an Ivy League degree and I didn't know what the hell to do, and so a lot of guys struggle, and it definitely wasn't easy. And, I worked a couple different careers within the span of like 5 years and then ended up leaving the last one and was about to buy a business locally. And thank God that didn't happen because, like you said, COVID hit shortly after. So that would have emptied my pockets a little bit. And then, once we were in that lockdown, I, again, was just kind of thinking like, what the hell am I going to do? And I thought back to this book idea, which again had been a side project for close to 20 years, really. Like,
wow.
Like ever since the whole burn injury happened, all the guys, like my teammates behind the scenes, like they're the only ones that truly knew what was going on and what I was like really going through.
Yeah.
And so I just thought more about it. And at the end of the day, like I was scared as shit to write that book. I didn't want to write it. I don't even being a man in hockey, like, we're not taught to like be vulnerable and like throw it all out there. So initially I was scared, but at the end of the day, I thought, man, if I can even just help one person with this, then that's what it's all about. And we ended up raising some money for the burn fund in the process. Yeah, I think we raised almost $11,000 in the first 3 months there. So yeah, it was really cool, man. And it's gotten really good reviews and feedback. So I can't complain. And it's led me to, what I'm doing now with the coaching and the speaking gig, and it's all kind of intertwined. So it's a running machine now. So it's been good.
Can you talk a little bit more about, I know we don't want to just glaze over this, but the coaching and the speaking thing, keynote speaker, I mean, can we just go into that a little bit more and the types of things that you're doing for people? Because you really have sort of parlayed in this to like a full-time job now, that you go in and people talk and they want to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really all came from the book. So I was just like, I'm just going to start writing this thing. So I started putting pen to paper. And then, I got about halfway through the book and the light bulb kind of went off in my head. And I was like, this is what I need to do. Like, this is what I need to teach people, being the visualization piece. Because for me, that was, really like life-changing in so many different ways. Like, I don't get out of that burn unit and come back and play hockey without this practice. I don't make the NHL without this practice. I mean, it saved my life. And like I was painting a nicer picture than it was after hockey. Like, I mean, I was like rock bottom, like depressed and not in a good place. And as soon as I went back to this practice, like my life changed dramatically again. So again, that light bulb went off, and I launched this coaching business and had these visualization programs based off of, again, my experience and even like studies at Brown and rabbit holes and research that I had done and read, after the fact. And yeah, created this program and it really took off, and, worked with a lot of athletes. I've worked with hundreds of athletes now all over the world, anywhere from professional to like 11, 12-year-olds, as young as that. So it's been really cool, really rewarding. And then with that came the speaking. So, the public speaking is something that I enjoy it. And I've done just like really casually, over the years before I started it professionally, but, just with local people that, I know, or different connections, right? It's a pretty small community in the Okanagan here. So whether it be teams or organizations are like, hey, can you come out and speak? And, show up, don't prepare, and just chat for half an hour, 45 minutes. And yeah, and that was, again, really casually. And then with this coaching business, I thought, I could really make a go of this and really kind of craft the messaging properly and add some value, right? And then, I've been doing that for a couple of years here as well, and that's starting to take off. So yeah, I'm kind of at this like tipping point of my long-term vision is more moving to like the consulting type of role with the coaching with different teams, and just have, a handful of clients versus like, 20.
Be everything to everybody.
Yeah. But I mean, right now it's working well. And that's kind of where I see the long-term going, is start really getting established in the speaking, which has already happened. But you can start doing pretty well there if you, create a niche and have your audience and have your messaging really down. So that's kind of where it's all headed. So yeah, man, it's been a fun ride, and it's taken me, well, I mean, I've been doing it for a few years, but it took me, a good 5-6 years to figure out what the hell I was like meant to do after hockey. And again, it's not always easy, but just kick open doors. That's all. Sometimes it's not the right one, and only one way to find out, right?
So with the book, I just wanted to go back to that for a second. Like, once you're able to kind of get pen to paper and get past like your personal roadblocks that were in your head, like how freeing was that?
Yeah, it was really, really therapeutic, I would say. I didn't realize how much so that it would be. And so that was a really, really cool experience I mean, that's also helped me, like, just in my life in general, to, be open with my wife or with my kids or family, and just being able to talk about shit, versus 15 years ago, like you're just in your own
bury it, play a game.
Bury it. Yeah. And it's just not sustainable in a healthy way. So yeah, it definitely helped with that. And I think it's, made me a better man because of it, really.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ted,
Great stuff.
I know I know you've partially seen the rundown. You've got a busier life than I do. Last time we talked about double homicides. We talked about
that was my favorite. The freaking double homicide.
I had to re-listen to our episode because I'm like, okay, because Ted was saying like I felt like he had a story he was supposed to tell, and I was like, okay,
that's funny. That's a chapter in the book. It's called Double Homicide.
I love it. And you also talked about getting smashed in town with a buddy and realizing you had to play that night. By accident.
Dude, yeah, that was that was an interesting game. I scored that game too.
And you did, yeah. So just in case anybody forgot, right?
And in case everyone forgets, I didn't score. So like that was a big deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We remember everybody. I wanted to kind of keep this fun this time around, but we didn't talk hockey cards. Did you ever have an Upper Deck Young Gun rookie card? Or any other types of cards like jersey cards or stuff you're like, wow, I can't believe me, Aaron Volpatti, is because that's a pretty distinguished thing, right? To get like a professional sports card, let alone we see even now with all the young guns for all these guys that are coming through and like they may never play after a season or two, but they get this rookie card that it's kind of like a a little gold medal. Like, did you ever have one of those, like, professionally?
I have. I don't know if the brand was Upper Deck or there's like other ones, right?
Or one of them. Yeah.
It was like back in the day, it would have been like OPG or
OPG.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there was a Young Guns one or not. I definitely had some cards. They're probably my son's got like a big box. I'm sure I gave him one. But yeah, it was a really cool to see that card. I think. For me, the even cooler thing was like the video games where your buddies would text you and be like, fuck, you're only rated 61, man. What the hell?
You're like, I'm in the game.
Hey, I'm in the game, man. Come on. You're not in the game. No, but actually this year it was funny.
You have to make yourself and barely get your name in there.
So, what's funny is this year, so I've been 8 years retired, which is insane to think about. But in my hometown in Revelstoke, all like the kids and all my nephews, they're all around like that. I mean, there's a couple of like newborns and young ones, but they're usually most of them are like 5 to 8. So for Halloween, my niece called me and she's like, Unky, did you know that 2 kids in my class are going as you for Halloween? And
no way.
Wow. That's how you know you made it. You're like a Halloween person. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm like, well, what did they like? Did they just get a bunch of black eyes? Like, what does that even look like?
Yeah. What does it mean?
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. I thought that was fun. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is Ted, has anybody ever been you for Halloween?
Yeah. I think I had this one friend but it wasn't very flattering. Yeah. It was,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like a dig.
He was just ripping on me, like totally making fun of just jack my style and make me look bad, right? Like same reason we go as you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, because you have had people dress as you for work, I think. Didn't the whole entire staff go as you?
Technically, that
pilfered clothes from Christine over like the course of the month and then just show up on Halloween as Ryan.
Not even like 3 days before. The designers we work with, they called up my wife and they all dressed up as different versions of me for Halloween. So it was pretty.
I guess it's not that big of a deal, I guess.
Yeah, so, I mean, big deal. Like NHL or regular guy, it's pretty much the same thing. It's on the same level.
Yeah. They still dressed up as you, man.
Exactly. So you talk about being retired now for a while. I just saw this came up in my feed today, Canucks alumni kind of meet and greets, and it had you, Kirk McLean, and I think, who was the other guy? I can't find it. Anyway, it was like a Budweiser kind of whatever, and it was like meet and greet Kirk McLean. I'm like, well, Aaron's on there. Like, where could we see him? So how involved are you in the Canucks alumni stuff?
Yeah, I would say fairly involved. I generally get to, I would say, like 2 or 3 things a year. Whether that's like a charity tournament. They had one last week and I couldn't get to. It's tough with the work and being busy. You try and balance that stuff. I am making, this hasn't happened for a long time, but I think the books kind of like maybe brought some of this kind of back out, or like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Oh, he was like played for a little bit, I think. And, but I have a signing appearance in Kelowna on I should look this up. I think it's the 24th.
Okay.
I want to say it's at a liquor store of all places. So,
hey, You know,
yeah, maybe all your Kelowna listeners stay tuned. I don't have the exact location, but that's happening, which is kind of, partly through the alumni and just different fun charity games, like the luncheon they have. I can't make it to that one again, but I went last year. So yeah, man, it's really good to be a part of, and just, it keeps you in the game, and you get a piece of that camaraderie back. That's the biggest thing that I miss, that I think a lot of guys miss. It's not just the game itself, it's what you don't see in the room, and just being around the guys, right?
Go back to sharing stories and stuff like that. When you first retired, I mean, obviously you talked about the fact that you hit that low. Did you separate yourself from the game fully for a little bit before making your way back into it? Or was hockey always kind of around for you, especially at the pro level, either it being through relationships or sticking around teams or doing work with organizations and things like that? Or was it like kind of a gradual progression?
No, I think the way my career ended with the neck injury, and it was just kind of over like that. And yeah, I wasn't in the best place. So I kind of separated myself for a couple years and gradually got back into it. I mean, I'd like to play ideally like once a week in something, but I don't want to do the beer leagues. I did it once, and then, there's always that one guy on every team, and he's like, that guy doesn't look tough. Like, I bet I could fight him. And then they chase me around, and I'm like, dude, get away from me, man. Like, so that was, I don't have any interest in doing that, but I was going out with the group in Kelowna a few times, which is fun. And so yeah, I've slowly gotten back into it. Like what I'm doing now keeps me involved in the game a little bit. The on ice stuff I'd like to do a little bit more of, but yeah, I probably am on the ice, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a year, not a lot. I mean, I help coach my kids' hockey team, but that's like standing around and shooting pucks at them,
making sure they don't go out of the 10 by 10 area kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think I've gotten pulled back into it more with what I'm doing now, which has been really cool. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. What about, I mean, you're coaching, you're working with players. Is there like a specific, because everybody now just specializes in something usually, right? Like it's, whether it's puck skills or skating, is there like an area that you focus on specifically with your players?
No, not necessarily. Like, again, my whole thing is visualization. So the technique that I teach for everyone, I call it cinematic mind mapping, where I just want to help every one of my clients create and direct like the movie for their life, right? So I tell them, think of like, if they're a hockey player and they want to go play in the NHL, great. Well, think of it like a movie, and let's write that, let's direct it. And I want you to visualize that every single day. And in that comes, what I call it rehearsal imagery, which is one of the types of visualization, where it's things like that, right? Okay, like I want you to play that game on Friday. You should have already played that game 100 times in your head by the time it comes, right? So that's everything involving skill, right? So that could be skating, it could be shooting, passing, hitting, whatever. And we try to craft that practice and sort of insert it in the movie, if that makes sense. So I let the clients more direct certain areas of their game that maybe they want to focus on more and improve on. And for me, it's none of it's physical. I'm like, that's you're doing that. We're doing the mental stuff, right?
So it's about reps through the mind, essentially. That's cool.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
We're going to get into some actual Canucks talk in a second. Now, neither of you guys know what I'm about to do here. And Aaron's either going to leave or he's going to have one of the biggest laughs he's had in a week. So
do I get the shit kicked out of me, or are you going to pull up a old fight?
Like, if you hear a knock on the door, I'm really... So your book, pretty cool cover photo on there. You're all tatted up and, looking like you're pretty grizzled. And the guy to my screen right also has been known to, hit the gym.
What are you doing?
Get pretty ripped. So I tried to, if you had to pick somebody, like, would you pick, let's say Aaron or Ted? So I just kind of going to throw this up here. So that's Aaron, that's your book. And I tried to get it as close as possible. Ted's actually more ripped than that now. But I just thought, like, folks, if we got anybody that wants to comment, like, who's the better body here? I mean, it's
oh my god,
that's a toss up. Yeah,
it's you guys are looking pretty mean, so it's that's a tough one. I don't know.
What's that movie where he's like, how much you bench, how much you weigh, how much you weigh. You know what's funny about that cover is I hired this design team in Toronto, and they were awesome to work with, and I had no idea. I kind of just I figured I'd just do like the headshot that most guys do, and that was kind of I figured where we'd be. And they did some mock-ups, and they're like, but your whole book, well, not the whole book, but primarily is about like this journey from the burn unit to the NHL. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, we need to show your scars on there. And I thought, okay, like I didn't at first. I'm like, I don't want to be that tarps off on the cover guy.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, let's just do a few in the shoot. So we did them all, and they sent me some mock-ups, and they sent me this one, and I'm like, they're like, you need to do this. And I was like, it does look good.
Man, it looks awesome.
You're pretty chiseled. Like, I'd be proud of that.
Hey, and I was like 20 pounds lighter than when I played there. So
like, mine's all covered in hair. So even if I had your body or your body, most of it's covered anyway, shirt or not. So
teen wolf.
Yeah. Oh, it's a little bit more than that.
How did that work after hockey for you? I mean, the gym is, I think, the gym, physical fitness, just being healthy in general as we get older, I think starts to play way more of a role than it did when we were in our 20s or even early 30s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you being a professional athlete for, a solid amount of your adult life, and even when you weren't a pro, you were still playing in college, playing in the BCHL. So the amount of information and knowledge that you've picked up over your career, do you still use a lot of that for training? Is just do you train the same way that you used to? Do you dial it back? Are you into new things? I'd be curious where you're at with that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that is a big part of who I am and how I'm wired. Like I was always just a dog in the gym, mostly because I knew I had to be, in the best shape on the team, if not one of the best, because that didn't need to be a reason to ever get cut. And I was always just sneaking into leagues, right? Just creeping in. So I always made sure that, again, that was one of the things I could control, right? Mm-hmm. So I was always in really, really good shape. After hockey, like once my neck sort of settled down, that obviously deterred things a little bit. But yeah, I generally I don't lift like crazy heavy weights anymore, just because that's not conducive to, no herniation or of a disc or anything like that. But yeah, I play a lot of squash,
cool.
Which is a fun game. So here's a fun little tidbit for you, because again, I think I've lost like probably 25 plus pounds of muscle. So I'm built a little differently, a little more slender. And I go and play these like really intense sports. And I have 2 torn meniscus, a torn MCL, and like this cartilage tear in both knees. So like, I'm just a mess right now. But other than that, yeah, I generally do like workouts kind of every morning. I don't like going to the gym. It's not my thing. It's too social for me, where like, I don't see that as a social thing. I'm like, I want to get in here. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm just here to work. Like, leave me alone. I probably seem like a grumpy bastard when I go in the gyms, but when people start talking to me, I'm just like, fuck off. Like, just leave me alone. Anyway, so I social things are, other outlets for me. So I'll just bang out like a 20-30 minute, like really hard kind of hit thing every day. Not so much legs the last few months with these old knees of mine now, but yeah, I always do something. So
I think like that's a good segue. I mean, we're watching the Canucks now. It's obviously a huge part of that team, and really like emphasize fitness with the squad heading into the off season. And I feel like we're seeing a lot of that now. It seems like a lot of guys have come back maybe in better shape, or in a different kind of shape maybe than they were before. And I feel like this is like an Aaron Volpatti squad, right? I mean, I think you would be the kind of guy that would play on this roster with that fitness level. I mean, what's it like to play with a coach that really, really emphasizes not only the skill side of it and being able to stick to like the on ice program, but coming in the best shape possible and telling guys that, look, this is going to be a factor for when you make this team.
Yeah. First of all, I don't know if I could play in the league anymore. It's too damn fast. Or I shouldn't say fast. I was always fast, but skill wise, yeah, man, it's the guys are crazy skilled. And you can't hit the way we used to hit. You'd be suspended every other game. But to go back to the fitness thing, I really think it's just a spillover in culture in general, right? So you talk about culture. Well, what kind of culture do you want to have if it's, one of just like relentless, hard to play against? You got to be fit, right? And I think it's one of those things that you control. It's part of being a professional and showing up every day and wanting to get better, wanting to be the best version of yourself. And in that requires you to be in the best shape you can be in. So I totally think it's a resemblance of the culture piece, which from what I can see, it looks like I don't want to say already built, but it's definitely going there. It seems like they have it now, right? So
yeah.
How much of that? I had a little add to that too. How much of that, or how much credit, or credit's the wrong word, but like the Sedins, they're now part of the staff. Like, I mean, you played with them. What do they bring? I guess as coaches, like having played with them, obviously that's a little bit different being a teammate. But what would you think that they bring as coaches to this squad, having played with a couple of them, but now they're kind of in the advisory role and the shaping role? Like, I know they did that, on the ice, I'm sure as well, but now that they're in more of a teaching mode, like what do you think the Sedins bring to Tocchet and his staff?
Yeah, I guess a good question. I mean, like those guys were always again, like to my point, those guys were always in the best shape, right? So not only could they think the game and do the kinds of plays that they did, but I remember the first camp we did the grouse grind, and I tried to keep up with those guys, and like I was in good shape and they just destroyed me. So again, when your leaders are those guys that they're always in the gym the longest, then you want to follow that, and that helps again shape that culture. I think now in their role, which I mean, you look at their lineup, like talk about a solid lineup of guys that have played and can shed knowledge, right? And I think for these guys, it's not so much obviously the fitness, although I would say and argue that would spill over, where all those guys know that those guys are still in really good shape, but were in good shape when they played. Like that's well-known knowledge.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like the little things that some of these guys can share, right? Like little plays that, guys like me would never think to do. And not that you're expected to play that, but, things that can really help in the little areas of the game. Just the really fine details, like that lineup of coaches they have, there's not a single thing that's getting missed in practice or games, because those guys, they all have the pedigree and then some, right, to shed light on all that. So yeah, I think they got a pretty rock star lineup of people there.
Yeah, I said to my wife before we came on here tonight watching the game, and they did a shot of like Foot and Tocchet and Gonchar. I'm like, how many Stanley Cups are behind the bench right now? Like an obscene amount. Like just knowing that they're speaking experience, like you said, like it's not just, and these guys were, all three of them were, at the height of the NHL. Like they were on some of the best lines or the best D pairings or, Olympic teams or whatever. Like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that, all these like Hall of Fame skilled guys that end up being coaches, like, has there ever been a good one? Like you look at Gretzky, and I had Oates. That guy's a terrible coach. Right. And then you got guys like the sandpaper guys like Tocchet. And I mean, there's a handful of other guys that were those role guys. They always seem to have more success. I just think it's interesting.
Like I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day, and someone said that the guys who just like have the gift from God, just like are able to put it together because it's something that they can do. And sometimes that's stuff you can't teach. And so the guys that don't are the guys that have to learn and know the systems top to bottom to make their move or to gain ground. I don't know if there's any like truth to that, but
I think those guys are probably more relatable, right? Because they had to maybe grind it out versus the other, like, you know, Oates, for example, like he would have been a good assistant coach.
right.
But yeah, no one can think the game like him.
Yeah.
And, you know, he expects that. And it's like, I'm just trying to stay in the league here, man. Like, just let me play my game anyway. But yeah, I think it's just interesting that, you know, those guys maybe more relatable, maybe more intimidating. I don't know. But yeah.
I guess same with the broadcasters too. Like you look at Bieksa, which I think has been probably, I mean, super smart guy. Obviously, again, went to, you know, pretty smart college as well and did his thing in the NHL like you did. And, you know, always a great interview. I mean, I'm sure you'd seen plenty of them, even if you ever watch highlights or what have you. But I mean, he just seemed like the most natural fit, or even like a Paul Bissonnette, or like there's some of the guys that, I mean, I'm not saying that those are the same level of guys, but the guys that maybe had a little bit of gift of the gab and maybe they weren't at the top of the lineup necessarily, but they definitely knew about the game and they could bring it necessarily maybe after the game. And you can see that now. Like, you know, you're right. You talk about the Gretzkys, or you guys talk about, you know, Oates or whoever. Like, there's a lot of these star players that don't really fit. Yet there's the guys that have kind of grinded it out, or the backup goaltenders, or the goofy goaltenders like a John Garrett kind of thing. And like these guys that you're just sucking all the knowledge from because they've had time to. I mean, some of them have had time to think about it. So interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Anyways, interesting topic, but
a couple more things and we'll let you go here. Protective gear has been a big talk in the last couple weeks, obviously with Adam Johnson with the skate cut and unfortunately losing his life. You've played, and it's great to have you. And this was something I was hoping to ask you at some point. Like, you've played the game at its highest level, and you've also had the option to, you know, be a little bit more free with protective equipment because, well, the NHL doesn't exactly, you know, they don't force the issue on a lot of things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to like neck protection, like I know there's like Kevlar socks now, and there's all these different types of protection to, you know, different types of helmets, different this, different that for football or hockey. Like, is the NHL going to get this? Like, what are you seeing? I mean, obviously you're coaching a minor hockey team, your son's team. I mean, these are all mandatory items. I help out with speed skating. They've got full Kevlar suits, cut proof, you know, undersuits, this and that. And these are all standard things. And yet we see guys that probably could be taking the biggest risks in the NHL. And yet there's so many of these protective, you know, pieces of equipment that aren't there. Like, what do you see the future? Like, do you see the NHL ever fully pressing these sorts of things, or what do you think?
Yeah, such a good question. I've had this talk a couple times, and I mean, short answer is I really don't know. I mean, like, let's be honest, at the end of the day, when you think about what it should be, like, guys should be wearing cages, full Kevlar. It just makes sense. But they don't. So will it get there? I don't know, man. It's really hard to say. Like, I know some of the junior B leagues, I think all of them actually wear cages now.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing it just creep up the ranks. And I think if that continues to happen, yes, like, the game's only going to get faster with technology, and guys are going to get, you know, bigger and again, more skilled and faster. So do I think it will get there? I honestly don't know. It's hard to say, like, as a player, like, would I be suiting up neck guard? I don't know, man. Like, I have kids now, so I think that would play into it a little bit. If I was just coming into the league, and I don't know, it's so hard to say until like something like this happens. Right. So I think it's good to shine light on it. At the end of the day, they're as tragic as that was, and I'm not trying to like downplay it at all. There is risk there. So can we mitigate it? Right. Definitely. Will it happen? I honestly can't say yes or no. I think it should. Like, again, if you look at the game and what it should be, like, again, like I said, should have cages, cut proof, everything, because you're you're playing this game on knives. So
Yeah.
It's a tough one, man. It really is.
I remember my dad talking to my grandpa saying like, my grandpa saying like, oh yeah, I remember when I thought, they'd never make helmets a thing. And then my dad saying like,
yeah,
I wonder if they'll ever make visors a thing, right? Like, it kind of is just the next progression. What is it that prevents the players from sort of taking control of their own destiny with this type of thing? What in the culture contributes to that decision?
Yeah, I don't think that, the aesthetics of it really play into it anymore. I mean, you're seeing a lot. Who have I seen? Like Oshie and Kopitar. I've seen them and a few other guys wearing it, and it's just not going to be an issue from an aesthetic point of view in terms of like looking the part and looking cool. I think maybe in the past that's been a thing, right? Where if guys wore like a turtleneck or like a visor, and they were a fighter, like you'd get chirped.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I'm assuming it's gone. I would think that it would be, but yeah, I don't know, man. It is such it's just such a hard one to say. I really don't know where it'll go, but I think at the end of the day, it's the guys' decisions. And I mean, the other thing that I could think of that I really wouldn't like is you'd get so damn hot wearing all that stuff. So again, it's like, okay, I have this trade-off.
So it's a technology thing too, I guess. Like find a way to make those light,
yeah,
make something that's breathable, movable, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I was a hypocrite, in the sense that I didn't wear a visor. I should have. Like we all should wear cages.
Sure.
But in the role I played, I was like, well, I'm going to get chirped if I have a visor on. Now it's grandfathered in, so eventually they'll all have visors, right? So maybe they do that with cages next. And what does that look like with fighting? And there's all these different things.
Well, it doesn't look good on TV. It doesn't look good. You can't see the guy's face, right? Like those are the
marketing. Yeah. And so there's a money piece behind it for sure, right? So that's the only thing I think is like, it's hard to call that a trade-off when you're talking about life and death versus like being comfortable. But when you're talking about performance, I mean, the reality is there might be guys that trumps the risk of an injury. I mean, you could die from your head hitting the ice too.
Yep.
Right. So there's other risks, and well, how do we mitigate that? And again, like very tragic thing. And I was even crying. I wish I didn't watch the video because it really hit me hard.
I haven't seen it. I saw it once everybody's on the ice. I thought I don't need to.
No,
it's not something, and we've seen a few of those already happen throughout the NHL over the years, and it's not something. I mean, I get it. If the thing is, I guess if you see it, you see it, right?
Yeah,
it's not something that people should be looking for.
No, totally. So obviously, yeah, really tragic. I don't know where the league's going. Like, again, I'll repeat this one more time. We know where it should go,
right?
But there's a lot of factors that are going to play into that in the long run. So
yeah. There's just a quick thing on here, and this is a fair point. I think you've kind of said it, and we'll kind of send you on your way in a second here. Christopher Phillips, good friend of the show, he asked, and I'll put it on here, is getting chirped worse than a catastrophic injury? And no. I mean, I think that's a fair question, right?
No, and that's like a very minor thing that, again, I don't think is an issue anymore. That I think that's out the window. I was talking about the visor thing.
Right. Okay.
Like for me, that was a risk, I guess more like with eyes, for example.
Sure.
I was willing to take that risk because like I'm trying to stay in the league, and is management and the coaches going to think differently of me? And again, I'm trying to stay in the league. So these are all the thoughts that run through your head. So
yeah,
in that question, yeah, it is worth it.
Yeah.
For me in that moment. The neck guard thing, I don't think that falls into this category because I don't think that they won't get chirped for wearing a neck guard anymore.
Right.
You just won't. And if you do, you're a piece of shit and you shouldn't be in the league because that's just not cool, man.
Yeah.
Right?
I think everyone gets these like kind of moral dilemmas, almost, or not moral, but you have this personal dilemma where, again, in the moment, and you're at that highest level, and you're thinking, well, you know, is this something that's going to affect my job? Is this, and you don't know how the coaches or anybody else is going to think. Like, if I do this and it causes me to maybe think twice about something else while I'm doing my job on the ice, you know, is that going to affect, you know, how many more shifts I get, or this, that, and the other? Like, I could see that. Like, those are questions you're asking yourself as the game's going on.
Right. I mean, if you looked at most of the fourth lines 10, 15 years ago, not many guys had visors. So do I want to be one of those few just coming into the league? Like, well, yeah, part of me wants to protect my eyes, but the other part says, no, I got to play the role.
Right.
So it's such a hard one.
That's
it
tough.
really is.
That's tough.
I just want to maybe end this on like a fun note. Obviously, you know, you're watching hockey with your son right now. The Canucks aren't a heater. I mean, I don't know. They're an absolute unit.
Thank you.
No wheels
Tim
on that
McAllister
wagon to fall
their
off.
wagon, so I don't know.
What do you think about this team right now? Do you notice any similarities from when you played with Vancouver, and is this sustainable? Like, what are you liking about them right now?
I think there is some similarities. I think guys have very defined roles and they're playing them well. Man, like some of the skill level is pretty insane. I mean, like Quinn Hughes, I remember, so going back, this is probably, I think that might have been, how long has he been there for? Over 5 years now, right?
I think
this is year 5.
Is it year 5?
Is this year? I think this is year 5.
I want to say it was just before COVID, or maybe it was
we should know this, but we don't.
Yeah, or maybe it was when COVID kind of like got lifted, and I went to a game, took my son, and I didn't know who anyone was then, like, because I wasn't really watching the game, and like that whole team's new. I haven't played with anyone. I know of some of the guys, and man, that guy, he just, every time he touches the puck is like something happens. So I think they got they got all the tools, and I think that's where some of the teams that struggle don't have that defined roles. Like there's still, the bottom 6 still needs to be the bottom 6, and they need to, you know, play the shutdown role, be hard to play against. I think they have that, and obviously like their top lines are just buzzing. So they're doing their thing. So to go back to your point, I think there is some similarities from that like 2010 team. I kind of feel like these guys might be a little smaller overall, but that the game's also changed a little bit.
To that,
yeah, and it doesn't really necessarily, I guess, mean much, really. I mean, if you look at some Stanley Cup winners, the past teams have been pretty big and heavy. So I'd be curious to see, like, if they went up against like Vegas, for example, in a playoff series, like how would that pan out? Maybe we'll find out. But I mean, yeah, I think they've surprised people, correct? Like they weren't supposed to be this good, or were they?
They surprised us.
Yeah, I think the general consensus is that they were going to be pushing for a playoff spot.
Yeah, they look.
That was the max expectation, I feel like.
I just feel like their execution is so good. Like they control the play. Like I don't see a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of exciting guys to watch, right? And then again, if you mix in the right role players, which it seems like they have, you never know, man. They could make a push.
I told somebody today I'm okay with a Cinderella run this year. It's fine.
Yeah,
one of those. Every
weird.
I'll take one.
You don't
Aaron,
say.
This has been an absolute blast and a pleasure. Thanks for coming back on our show. It's a lot of fun. Like you're a very well-spoken guy, and you've got a lot to talk about from the game from a lot of different aspects. And I think that's what's a lot of fun to chat with you. It's there's always something that we can grab on. I think there's a lot of topics that we can get into. Just before we let you go, is there anything that you'd like to promote? Obviously, now that you're doing public speaking, the book's still out there. It's not going anywhere. If you'd like to bring that up, or kind of what you've got going on, if there's something that you'd like to promote, by all means, fire away for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just probably my website's the easiest place to go find me, find some information. It's just my name, AaronVolpatti.com. Same thing with all my
Seems easy
social is all my name at Aaron Volpatti. So yeah, check that out. The book's on Amazon if you want to, have a read. I promise you'll be entertained at the least. So there's some good stories in there too. So yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on again. It was fun.
That's awesome. Plans for another book down the road, or are you gonna just leave the pen down for a little bit?
You know what? I've considered it. So yeah, we'll see. I enjoyed it, so I would do another one. So
cool.
It wouldn't happen anytime soon, but yeah, maybe in the future we'll see.
You can talk about comparing bodies with a podcaster.
Yeah, only if you'll be on the cover, I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, Teddy. Oh, there you go, man. You made it. See?
You gotta sub in.
Instead of going as somebody for Halloween, you can be on somebody's book.
There you go.
There you go.
That's awesome.
I'll
Aaron,
go as Aaron.
We'll pay your royalty.
Much, man. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Thanks for coming by. Go Canucks, go. All that jazz.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Take it easy.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay.
What a beauty.
Man, he's such a good guy. Such a good guy. And he didn't leave the show after we posted that photo of you and him. I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I wasn't
can't
sure
believe you did that.
I wasn't sure that was going to go. And he's entertainable. So
great guy. I just love that that he's just willing to share whatever insight or opinion that he's had, because he's been in those areas with those players and in all different levels of hockey, right? So yeah, his insight is always appreciated. I love it when he drops a little knowledge on us. But yeah, super personal guy, really fun to talk to. I can't wait to go check that book out.
He was still hanging out. I'm like, if you like, you can leave. We appreciate it. Like, you don't have to hang around. So man, like, it's just there's good stuff to talk there. Like I said, I have that book in my list of reads, and especially considering, I mean, he's got a pretty interesting life. So
yeah,
people go check it out. Fighter by Aaron Volpatti. The Canucks won again, Ted. I didn't see the final score, but I think it was 5-2.
Yes.
So,
and it was, and it's Quinn Hughes' technically his 6th year, but he only played like the 5 games that first year. So 5th full season, we'll call it.
He is an absolute banger out there. Tonight's game went a few different ways. Besser scores on a goal that they had to wait to call 15 seconds in. Glove save inside the net. They end up calling it a goal. Then you see Mikheyev pots 2 tonight. He looked like an absolute unit out there. Patterson was just going. He had an absolute clapper to make it 5-2. Miller scores. Like, it's not that the shoe's going to drop. I think I got to stop saying that around everywhere, because I think that's the wrong thing. But whenever, and again, I don't even think regression is the proper word, but they're going to lose a game, and they're probably going to lose a few in a row at some point.
Sure.
And because that's how sports work. And if they didn't, then this could be the greatest team ever assembled, which is entirely possible. But it's going to happen, and we're going to look at it. And I think the team's going to look at it as well and think, okay, these are the things that we were doing and they didn't work this time. I don't know if it's going to be just a bad goaltending night, or if it's going to be a defensive lapse, or even Quinn Hughes looks pedestrian, or guys are just not on assignment or whatever. It's going to happen. However, we're now at a point where the Vancouver Canucks, and it's still not American Thanksgiving, and we're not at Christmas, we're not at the All-Star game.
All those big markers we talk about.
Yeah. I think even at this point, though, like, let's take like the hype train away for a second, even though it's super easy.
Why?
I'm just saying, this is I think the Canucks are a legit team this year. Like, they're no longer like Aaron brought up, like, how, crisp passes and like everything seems to be happening, the way it's supposed to be happening. Last year, there were still a lot of these lapses, right? And I don't really see, even when they're giving up on, or when goals are being scored, it's not like everything falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, they're right there. They're right there with Vegas. Where does this make us 2-1 now? I think that puts us dead even with Vegas. Like, we're scoring a ton of goals. Like it feels good. We beat up on the Oilers, who now are in that I mean, they're basically the opposite. They're the upside down version of Vancouver right now, which is pretty hilarious, right? Like, if they keep going like this for Edmonton for another week or so, another 5-6 games or something like that, they're like, stick a fork in them. They're done, right? They're just not going to be able to come back from that. And I think if you flip that around and you push it to Vancouver, and we look at another 4, 5, 6 games of positive records, and coming out of road trips with 4 wins or something like that. I mean, this team is going to be looking really good, right? I mean, their last 10, they're 8-1-1. They're sitting on that streak. I mean, if all they do is play 500 hockey the rest of the way, they're going to have a chance to do some damage in the standings. And I think this team is completely capable of that. I mean, that would put them at what we considered that sort of bubble team to begin with this year, not expecting this heater that we're having right now, right?
Yeah.
So we're in a weird spot with this squad for sure, and it's a lot of fun to watch, man.
I think that's the best part, is it's so fun, regardless of if, like tonight, they're up 2-0, and I'm thinking, wow. And then they get one kind of middle, or was it middle of the first? Yeah, ends up tying up the game. They end up going back and scoring a goal, and then they put up another 2 after that. And you're just thinking, like, they're finding ways to make sure that even if they're winning or they're down, they're coming back, and they keep pressing. Their bottom 6 guys are pressing. They're getting bounces, man. They're getting puck luck.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm looking at the stats right now. PD's still leading the league, 24 points. I mean, you have Quinn has 1 more point than Jack Hughes, which to me is hilarious. And I don't think these are updated either, so there's no points included from this game. So another 5 spot on another team for this squad. And I think you were talking a little earlier about how good Mikheyev looks, right? I mean, that size and that speed on the forecheck, it's exactly what a guy like Pettersson and Kuzmenko need for this line. And Aaron talked about it earlier, right? I mean, I think the role players that are sitting on the squad right now are really all just in the right spot for this team. And they're about to welcome Teddy Bluger back into the lineup, right? I mean,
there's a rumor he might have played tonight, so likely.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched the game. I'm going to check it out after, but what happens when Bluger gets back, right? I mean, there's going to be some crazy roster decisions that are going to have to be made. I mean, I think the usual suspects, people at the start of the year, were thinking it's okay when Bluger gets back in. We'll just, I'm sure Höglander will be the odd man out. And now we've got Studnicka up here playing really well. And I feel like Höglander is here to stay now if he just does anything like what he's been doing for the last, 8 games or so the rest of the season. I mean, he's going to be be in pretty great shape, right? So I don't know what the coaching staff is going to do, but that's the first time in a long, long time that we've had a good problem about we were in the scenario of, God, can we get that guy out of the lineup so that we can get somebody else in and just have a look? And it's not like that anymore. We got a bona fide free agent signing that's supposed to help your bottom 6 and your PK. And it's like, do we want to disrupt these good vibes that are happening right now?
And we're not even talking about like Christian Wolanin. Like last year, he's gonna be here, or Akito Hirose, or there's let him just sit there. Like, things are fine.
Just simmer. I was talking to Darren about guys like Wolanin, right? I mean, like, good teams, get far in the season and push through the playoffs, and some of them win championships based on depth with guys like Wolanin, right? I mean, they're not going to be the guys who are up there playing in the biggest games, but you have to have serviceable depth to get you there. And in years past, we've had guys like Wolanin on this roster who we've had to depend mightily on, right?
Reliable players, because we have to rely on them.
Yeah, because we have to. I mean, God love Kyle Burrows, right? I mean, that's probably a guy that you'd want to have on your squad as depth, right? And that is a good depth player. But we've been so, subject to having these guys as big minutes, lots of games, important players for this squad, because there was nobody else. But finally, these guys, even the role players and the depth players, can now finally settle into that role of being a depth player for this team. And when the time comes, because injuries do happen, a guy like Wolanin is going to be a really handy player to lean on for, 5, 10, 15 games, however many it is that he has to play. But just know that he's finally in the right role at this point in time.
Yeah, and they can massage these guys in at a certain point too, whether it's by injury or, maybe, again, somebody has to slow down. Like, there has to be, like the bottom 6 guys or defensemen, like, someone has to slow down at some point. And you're going to be like, you know what, for the sake of change, let's call this guy up or what have you. Because, I mean, hey, you and I have watched the same team for a long, long time. these things will be happening at some point. Hopefully not to the level they've happened.
And this is not the same team.
No, this is so
something
different.
is very, very different about this squad. And I think we have to go back again to the talk at installing this culture, right? And again, Aaron talked about culture and how important that is. But it's there, right? I think these teams are defaulting to the system and this style of play when they find themselves in trouble, and it's set them free in a bunch of areas. And now they've tasted success with it, and I think they're just going to keep pounding the table.
You know, it's interesting, and I got a funny one to end on this, but you think back to like the Alain Vigneault team when he took over, and you look at how defensive that first season was. Remember?
Yeah,
like
we talk about this a lot. Yeah,
like how Luongo was just like, I mean, sorry, I don't want to get too crazy here. How Luongo was just so amazing, and that defense kept them in every single game. They won the division. He should have honestly had a Vezina that season.
Yeah,
and yet Naslund, like we didn't need, like they needed goal scoring. They weren't getting a lot of it, but they are winning games 2-1. They were winning games 3-2. They're pulling out wins because they had a guy that they absolutely could sell out on, and they did, and they won as many as they won. And then once the goal scoring came, then it was like, okay, well, we already have all this, and now they're just a freaking unit. And now you look at this team, and it's not. There's no real like defensive or offensive structure. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not built on like we do this portion well or we do this portion well. It's like everybody just has to be able to play 60 minutes where we've asked them to play 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And thankfully the guys that are doing really well are, you know, the guys that, you know, have drafted and everybody's been patient with. So, I mean, there's going to be contract talks, obviously. If this keeps going, like the whole Pettersson thing is like, you better sign him sooner than later because the number keeps going up. Like it's challenging for an Art Ross, Ted, with Quinn Hughes at the same time. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but for 2 seconds, I mean, could you imagine a world where Elias Pettersson is having to say, well, Quinn Hughes got this, and he's only on, you know, he's doing the defensive thing. I mean, maybe Quinn Hughes re-ups at that point. Like, hey, man, I should be getting more than Pettersson for sure. Like, we're getting into silly territory.
And speaking of silly, I mean, we're talking about a guy who could win. He's got the chops to win an Art Ross. This is we've talked about this, you know, a couple of times over the years that this might be the only guy in the squad back then that has the chops to win an Art Ross. He's also the only guy in the squad at the time when we were having these conversations 2-3 years ago that we felt, you know, could win a Selke, right? And now you've got arguably our best defensive forward, leading the league in points, currently a +9. He's not lights out on the power play. I mean, he's got 3 goals. He looks good, right? I mean, but JT he's the one that looks like he's stirring the drink defensively, which I wasn't expecting. And then we're talking about Quinn, just literally lights out for the squad. 21 points, Ryan. 21 points in 13 games. And I'm not even including what's happened tonight. I don't even know.
I can't wait for the Leafs game, honestly.
We almost need to
watch this together.
Yeah, totally. We should. I want to say like this one thing about Quinn, and I was having this conversation the other day with my wife, and I was just like, now more than ever, it's so possible that Quinn might go down as the most talented player to ever play as a Canuck.
That's
I mean, we just talked about 5 full seasons. He's embarking on his 5th full season currently.
And that's saying something.
And his ability to control the game and to have an impact and special skill. I mean, he's probably already eclipsed Linden in that sense, right? I mean, yeah, it's quite possible he scores 100 points this year. I mean, these kinds of questions aren't out of the realm. I mean, there could be a Norris winning defenseman playing for the Vancouver Canucks. And if he keeps ascending at this pace, I mean, you're very easily in there with the conversations of, you know, the Sedins and the Burres of the world. I mean, it's not that much to get to a Marcus Naslund level. I mean, when you think about where he is currently and what he's shown and just God-given ability to do, like he could go down as the greatest all-time Vancouver Canuck. And I know that's so big, and I know that that's a long way of thinking, but in terms of pure potential and where he's sitting, I mean, The sky is the absolute limit for this guy.
He's fast tracking himself on that. I think you're right. There are a lot of guys that could easily be eclipsed, and the two toughest ones would be the Sedins. And I think he's doing something that's probably a little bit harder because it's on the defensive side of the game.
Look, what happens if he wins a Norris this year? Say he scores a hundo and wins a Norris, right? Where does that? What level of prestige is that now putting him at? So if he wins a Norris with 100 points, what other awards does he win this year? Right? I mean, there's a good chance that he doesn't win as much as he should because it's an East Coast, West Coast vote.
I'm thinking there's one award I'd like him to win, and it's got a big leaf on the top of it, but that's a whole other conversation.
That would be great, right? I mean, all it's going to take is we know he's got the individual chops. It's going to take some team success, right, to give him that stature. But I'm not even talking about the awards end of it. I'm just talking about like the sheer Canuck end of it, and he's so good right now. And how on earth did you ever think that a player like Pettersson at this point in time, for what he's doing offensively, could be overshadowed? And will
he win the Cyclone Taylor Award though?
Yeah, well, who wins the Cyclone Taylor? I don't know. Could be Pettersson. Could be Hughes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unsung hero. We could be talking about Phil Peronic.
Who cares about Art Ross? Like, who's going to win the Cyclone Taylor Award? That's what I want to know. So, we'll end on a funny note. So you guys all know that I do my travels around town. This week, on one day, I saw two of the funniest things that made my week. The first one was a bumper sticker. It said MILF on the back. M.I.L.F. You know where my brain's going with this. Except it said, "Man, I love Falcons." And then there was another one. It says, "We like to watch," and it's people looking at Falcons. It was an interesting.
That's
car.
Cheeky.
It was very good. It made me giggle, and I wanted to make sure I got it on the show. And then the last thing, I was going to the rink yesterday, and I'm driving. It's got darker, obviously, around town for whatever reason. Something about the seasons or such.
It's like a farmer thing, I think.
It's the Farmer's Encyclopedia, I think it's called. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it's called? Yeah. So I'm driving down...
Not Britannica. It's a different thing.
Britannica, did you say? Both of those things. So I'm driving down Gordon Drive, and I'm going, and I see going down the bike lane the other way, a 4-point...
that Jeff Carter's wearing a neck guard.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tides are changing. I saw a 4-point buck going the opposite way in the bike lane. Two lanes over from me. I didn't know what to think of that. It not only was he going the wrong way, which I would have yelled at a cyclist if he was doing that, but like, what do you do? You see this?
Just this summer, downtown by the old Nesters there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a deer walking around the downtown, and then waited till the crosswalk turned to walk, and then used the crosswalk. Well, two cars waited there, my wife and the guy across from her, and this deer just waited his turn, hit the crosswalk as soon as the light went, and away he went.
You can go.
They know what's up. They know what's up.
Very weird. Just weird times in Kelowna. Folks, I think that's about time for us. Somehow we got to the hour mark. This has been great. We were even going to split it up, do some chores, come back, but we powered through. Thank you to Ted for dedicating an hour to this, because I mean, you got a busy life going on. Are you watching the hockey game already?
No, I'm just looking at these wild numbers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players on the roster currently that are above a point per game average right now.
That's dirty.
2 of them are defensemen. Philip Peronic hasn't scored a goal yet this year, and it has more points than games played. He's got 14 assists.
Yeah.
Plus 13.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's got a guy like Ilya Mikheyev, who's almost a point per game player.
Yeah, he's been okay.
Yeah,
he almost had a hat trick tonight. Yeah,
so he's above a point per game now. So I continue to be just shocked at this roster and what it's doing. It's definitely greater than the sum of its parts, or it's not. It's exactly where it's supposed to be, but we finally have a coach who's getting exactly what they need to and the most out of these players. It's really fun to watch right now. I just can't stress that enough. It's fun to be a Canucks fan.
Maybe PDO doesn't exist for the Canucks. Hell of a drug. This has been a lot of fun. On behalf of my boy Teddy, our good friend of the show and special guest this evening, Aaron Volpatti, former Vancouver Canuck, played in the 2011 almost Stanley Cup team. Don't know if he played in Game 8 though. I'll have to look into that. I'm Ryan. This is the PP1 podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network with DraftKings, promo code THPN, and Raycon. Go get those buckets on your ears. Go get those tunes flowing for you. PP1 podcast. Peace out.